Again. Kenneth Scott Latourette, History of Christianity, page 230, discussing still the rise of monasticism. He's just dealt with the impact of Basil of Caesarea. Now he's talking about Theodore and Martin of Tours. As we have suggested, Basil had a profound influence upon later monasticism in both the East and the West. The great leader and organizer in the revival of Byzantine monasticism, Theodore the Studite, whom we are to meet in the 8th century, and whose reformed monastery, an outgrowth of a church and center of monasticism founded in Constantinople in the late 5th century by Studius, became a model throughout the Eastern or Greek wing of the Catholic Church, and drew his inspiration, that is, Theodore did, from the writings of Basil. In the West, Cassian, a 5th century pioneer in developing monasticism in Gaul, was aware of the work of Basil. Basil's precedent was formative in the rules devised by Benedict of Nursia, whom we are to meet in the 6th century. Benedict took over the Basilian pattern, though not slavishly or to the neglect of other earlier forms of the monastic life, and modified it to suit the needs of himself and of the community which he founded. For centuries his rule was dominant in the monasticism of the West. An older contemporary of Basil, and apparently quite unaffected by him, but a pioneer of the monastic movement in the West, and especially in Gaul, that is, modern France, was Martin of Tours. We have already met him as a bishop who was active in spreading the faith in his diocese. Martin was born in the first half of the 4th century, the son of pagan parents. Since his father had been a military officer, Martin, complying with the requirement which made that occupation hereditary, entered the army in his teens. He was then already a catechumen. Some want to say catechumen. It was while serving in northern Gaul that the most famous incident of his life is said to have occurred. He is reported to have divided his coat with a beggar on a cold winter day, and that night in a dream to have seen Christ clothed with the half which he had given away, and saying that it was he with whom the young soldier had shared his garment. Baptized and resigning from the army 2 years later, Martin joined himself to Hilary of Poitiers, or Poitiers, we would say in modern French, a famous champion of Nicene orthodoxy, journeyed to his parents to try to win them to the Christian faith, and returning to Gaul, established himself as a hermit. Others were attracted to him, and a community arose which became the beginning of a monastery. The Christians of Tours wished him for their bishop, and luring him into the city, constrained him to accept the post. While performing with distinction the duties of his office, he remained humble, refusing to sit on the bishop's throne, but using instead a rude stool, and continued to live as a hermit in a cell outside the city, and there was joined by admirers who became the nucleus of another monastery. Many miracles were attributed to him. He was active in winning non-Christians and traveled extensively outside his diocese on various errands in the interests of the faith. He believed that no one was so depraved that he was beyond the scope of God's pardon. Himself impeccably orthodox, he protested against the persecution of heretics. He died in 397 or 400, probably in his 70s or 80s, exhausted by a journey which he had undertaken to restore harmony among the clergy in a town in his diocese. A younger contemporary admirer, who wrote his biography, declared that he judged none and condemned none, and never returned evil for evil. No one ever saw him angry, or annoyed, or mournful, or laughing. He was always the same, and presented to everyone a joy of countenance and manner which seemed to those who saw it beyond the nature of man. Nothing was in his mouth except Christ, nothing in his heart but piety, peace, and pity. This biography early had a wide circulation and helped to shape the general religious life as well as monasticism in the West. The large number of churches in Western Europe which were dedicated to Martin were evidence of the impress which he made upon the Christianity in that region. Next time, Jerome. See you soon. I'll put in a link to Northrop Frye, the great Canadian literary critic, wrote a book called The Great Code, and in that book he gives 2 reasons why Christianity conquered the Roman Empire, as well as paganism. Northrop Frye, I'll put that link on your screen. See you soon.